listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hello and welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. Today I'm going to do a podcast episode that is inspired by a Facebook group post that was in my Facebook group, the Terrific Teacherpreneur, many months ago, probably at the beginning of this year. And it just had some really great comments, it was really helpful. And I know that a lot of the time you might not be on Facebook or you might not see a post. I mean, with the algorithm and stuff, like you may not have seen it, whatever, but it had some really helpful stuff. I thought I would share some of those tips today. So actually got to give credit to the people that commented on that post. Thank you very much. Anyone in my Facebook group that commented, because some of your words of wisdom are going to be shared today. But basically I asked my Facebook group, I said, okay, so most of us are buyers on TPT ourselves or have been in the past. What's something that annoys or annoyed you as a buyer when shopping on TPT and looking at someone's listing? Maybe this will help us as sellers. Let's discuss. And I got a bunch of comments and interestingly, a lot of similar themes, which definitely sends a message that there are a few things that are really important. So instead of just listening to me share advice, you're actually going to be hearing advice from other teachers, other sellers just like you. And as well, you're not just getting one person's opinion, like, oh, I think that product photography is important. Like, that really is just my opinion at the end of the day. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I do think it's backed in research, but let's not ramble about that. This is something that is like, large group of people's opinions, and you're hearing multiple people say this. So, it's not just me, nagging you to do something. You'd be like, oh, wow, a lot of people think that. So I really need to improve in that area. Anyway, so here we go. I'm going to be talking about a few different areas. For the most part, there was a lot of comments talking about previews. So I guess if you zone out or fall asleep or don't get a chance to listen to this whole episode and there's one little golden nugget takeaway I want you to have, it's that you need previews on every single resource because, man, that came up a lot. Okay, but let's talk about all the other things first. So I've kind of grouped everything into little sections. These first two aren't like in a section, so I'm just going to start with these. So they're quite specific, actually. But this person actually said, I've never heard of this, but I guess this could be a thing. So we're starting with kind of an obscure one. But someone said that when the covers or thumbnails of a resource don't actually match the product, and they said, like, an example was when downloading a freebie, they found it was only the other one page because it was freebie, but the thumbnails and the pictures shown were what you could buy. So it was like this whole resource they were showing. And she said, if I'm listing a freebie, I'm going to show you what the buyer's getting. Like, yeah, I'll link to larger products, but I'm not going to deceive you. I will automatically steer clear of a store if I feel like they're trying to deceive me. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I feel like that's kind of, I don't think I would do that. I do tend to put my thumbnails are photos or mock-ups or whatever of what you actually get in the freebie, because I don't know if there's anything worse than leaving like a sour taste in anyone's mouth if they get their hopes about something. Like, you gotta remember, they could be actually like really time poor and they're like, really need this freebie. It's gonna be a lifesaver on Monday morning. And then they go to print it out on Monday and it's like, whoa, this was not what I was expecting. And their whole lesson's thrown off. Like, I mean, I don't know. You really have to think about these worst case scenarios and think, well, how pissed off are they going to be? Like, I don't know. So yeah, you have to kind of, I think being honest is so important here. And I think you can use a thumbnail to say, hey, do you want to buy the full product? Like, you could really make that clear in your text if you're saying this is a sample of a full product or something. But I mean, obviously in this case, this person was trying to deceive. I don't really know. But yeah, I guess the takeaway from that, because that's a very specific example, you might not be doing that or seeing that much, is honesty is always the best policy. And that is actually going to be the theme later on in another little section where people listed something that they find really annoying. And I think it's that, sometimes we don't do things to be deceiving or we don't want to piss off buyers, but we kind of make an error sometimes in judgment as a seller, and it does annoy buyers. And so, yeah, that's going to be something I'll talk about a little bit later with page numbers. So stay tuned for that one. But yeah, the takeaway here is you want to be so truthful here, because when you are honest, buyers know what to expect and they're going to be happy. If there's any kind of, difference between what they're expecting and what they're getting, that's when the bad reviews come in. That's when the people don't want to be a repeat buyer. Like, that's when you lose the sale. If we're talking about freebie, like, this is all where the negative stuff happens. So honesty is the best policy. The next thing someone said was they were annoyed when not enough details are just included in general in the listing. So, not clear enough pictures or mock-ups, like to show exactly what's included. It's that similar sort of theme, like people not really knowing what they're getting is a big thing that stops people from purchasing. So the next section that people mentioned a little bit was descriptions. And I will just say it's really interesting is people talked about descriptions, page numbers, previews. Wasn't a lot about covers or anything. I don't think that's like a game changer to persuading people to buy, which is really interesting. Obviously gets people to click on a listing, but we're talking about, hey, what pisses people off, like what gets them to buy? Like, I guess it's the stuff within the listing that really matters. That's really interesting. Yeah, well, there was not a lot of mention of, covers or even that much of thumbnails, which is really interesting. But descriptions. So 2 different people said not enough info in the description. Just obviously like brief, short descriptions really annoyed them when they just don't know what's going on. Third person said, yeah, not enough info in the description. I want to know how many questions are there? How difficult are the questions? This is obviously like a high school teacher or something. They said, like, what course level was the resource designed for? Is it Algebra 1 students, Algebra 2, honours, not honours? Like this was someone teaching that area. And they were like, I just need to know this stuff. I think we forget when we're a seller, we know this resource inside out. We've made it. We spent hours making it. And then I think when we come to list it, we forget to really break down really explicitly everything that's included and what's going on with it, who it's for, why it's great, because we're just tired at the end of it. We just have made this amazing resource. That's the fun part. And then we just kind of throw it up on TPT because we're like, oh, I just want to get this done. And like nobody likes writing descriptions. We tend to rush things, but really we need to make it really super clear because the buyers don't really know what it looks like, what they're getting, what's included, who it's for. And yeah, it's funny that you could like forget to write like a couple of sentences. It's as simple as that. And you could lose like $50. Like say you had a $50 bundle and like people just won't buy it because they don't know exactly who it's for. I don't know. It's interesting. And so when you look at that over time, you're like, okay, me not having this paragraph, for example, in my description that talks about who this is actually for, who this would actually help, who should buy this. And that's not in there. And then over the years, I miss out on just hundreds and hundreds of dollars of sales. It's really, interesting to think about. Someone actually said the word perfect. It's so overused. I roll my eyes every time I see it. Instead, try ideal, superb, foolproof, excellent, fantastic. Ooh, burn for me on that one because I use the word perfect a lot. And I thank you. I will try and change that because, I say this is perfect for, but maybe we could be trying to be more, a bit more variety in our vocabulary. Some funny things that annoy people. Like, I think that's a small one, but I'll keep that as food for thought. Next one, page numbers. Ooh, this one came up a fair amount. Someone said listing an exorbitant amount of page numbers, half of it being a word wall. So that was like a specific product I think that really upset them. I won't read out all of the rest. A lot of them were just like, no page numbers, no page numbers. People just seem to really annoyed by that. But it was like people being deceiving in their page numbers, which I mentioned earlier in the episode. I said, this is the thing I want to talk about where it's not sinister because I know that sellers aren't doing this to deceive people. They're like, oh, my product only has 4 pages, but if I try to include all these extra fluff pages, like I can lie and say it's 10 and make more sales. Like I don't think that really goes through people's minds. I think as sellers, we just go, oh, the total of this PDF is 13 pages and they just type the word 13. Like I think that's just what we do. But really, of course, a lot of that is like upsell pages and TOUs and stuff. And the actual content is not 13 pages. And then the buyer, I think the reason buyers get upset is because page numbers is kind of correlated with value at times, as much as we don't want it to be, and the price. So if they see it's 13 pages, they might feel okay paying $3 for that. Then when they go into it and they find that 90% of that's all these like covers, TOU, upsell pages, credit pages, I don't know, various other sort of fluffy instruction pages, whatever, answer keys and things. And they're like, whoa, wait, the actual content is only 3 pages or 4 pages, like what? And then they're like really pissed off. So wait, that's not worth $3. And that's where the anger comes in. So I think, anyway, so another person said specifically, they're like, I don't like it when people are counting the TOU page, the credits page, the more resources page, any other pages that teachers or students cannot use. It's very misleading. And that's, teacher instructions, student instructions, answer keys. Now, I do think there is a room for some things that are like similar repetitions, like maybe if you offer a color and a black and white version, or, differentiated versions that are fairly similar. And answer keys are not as bad, but I think the consensus among sellers is that it's shady to list your seller themed kind of pages, which is your cover, TOU, credits page. You know how we always have a bunch of those upsell pages, and that could be, for some people, it might be like 1 or 2 pages. Other people, it might be 3 or 4. In a 50-page resource, of course it doesn't matter. Like, oh, you've got 44 pages instead of 49. Like, that's not the end of the world. When you're talking about low ticket items or a couple of dollars and a really small page number, if half of it isn't content that can be used by students, that's when people get upset, because then they feel, I bought this under the, misapprehension. I bought this under the idea that I was going to be getting 10 pages of content, and that felt like it was worth $2.50. And now I've spent $2.50 and it isn't 10 pages and I'm very upset. So I think that's like the mindset they're in. So I want to say, if that's you, and you're listening to this thinking, oh my goodness, every resource in my store does that. I've done that. Oh my goodness, calm down. It's okay. I think we've all been guilty of it. I don't know, that's a sweeping generalization. Most of us have. I know I have. In my many early years, for many years, I would just look at the total page number, just type that in the box, 14 pages, done, moving on to the next thing. And then someone in Facebook group mentioned it and I was like, oh. And so sometimes it's not sinister. It's just, okay, let's just open your eyes to something that people might be upset about that hasn't occurred to you. Let's fix it. So for anyone wondering, you can type in the page number box. It's not unlimited, I don't think. I've had it cut off after a certain amount of words, but there is a hefty little chunk there. You can put a nice good old sentence in there. And so I highly recommend writing a sentence that really explicitly breaks down what's included. Don't mention the seller stuff. Nobody cares that there's a TOU or a credits page or an upsell page. Just pretend it doesn't exist, okay? It does not need to be on your listing, okay? So you can say the total if you want. You could say something like 13 pages in brackets, 6 worksheets, 6 answer keys. I sometimes do I go 6 worksheets plus 6 answer keys or something like that. I say things like, 5 worksheets in B/W, like black and white, and color versions too, or 33 worksheets plus blank pages, or empty versions, whatever. I don't know, all the different things I've written over the years have been to do with color, black and white plus answer keys, comes in 2 versions, comes in plain lines and dotted lines, or if you've got different lined paper or something, comes in addition to 5 and addition to 10. I tend to have total numbers, but I tend to have brackets. I tend to have a whole sentence where I really break it down. And so this, I guess, if I'm giving you more advice here, it's not just about excluding the seller stuff. That's one good thing to do. Oh, it's 20 pages, but when you take away the credits page and stuff, it's actually 16 pages. And then you just put 16. That's fine. That's the main tip for this episode. But while you're here, if I've got that tip for you as well to expand on that, is tell me what those 16 pages are. I think that helps buyers really understand, because we know a lot of the time that we add in all this extra stuff and it's helpful, but it takes away how much actual usable content there is. Because when you take away the color version, the answer keys, the differentiated, harder, easier versions, whatever, all these different things, the 2 different types of writing lines, it's the same thing twice but slightly different, or whatever, with and without clip art, whatever. And that's all really helpful stuff. But when you take all that away, what's left? And it's suddenly actually only 6 original worksheets. Something to consider. So yeah, we'll stop rambling about page numbers. I just wanted to share that thought with you. Hopefully, if you are overwhelmed because you think, I have been making that mistake in my store and I've got 300 resources, it's okay. You don't need to frantically fix that right now. But as you're doing updates in future, you can always tweak each resource. As you're updating the cover anyway, you can tweak the page numbers. Or maybe just do it for your bestsellers or something. But yeah, page numbers. Okay. Next up is previews. And this is a big one. This one was mentioned probably the most. I didn't count how many votes there were, but people would just say, no preview, not having a preview. They're no preview, give me a clue, not having a preview. I need to see what I'm buying. And I just that kind of thing. And then within preview discussions, because obviously just not having one was the biggest thing, people said stuff like, okay, no preview, or just having a 1-page preview where they show everything in itty bitty pages. If I can't see what I'm getting, I won't buy it, no matter how good the cover looks or the description sounds. Interesting. And I agree with that. There was a time back in the day, in the years past, where it was more common to just have these little overlapping tiny screenshots, and you'd be like, okay, there's 30 pages, and you would sit there and copy and paste all the little screenshots and overlap them all so they're all tiny, and I don't know, people couldn't steal them or see them or plagiarize you or print them or whatever. It's it felt kind of foolproof. But yeah, the only only thing it does is show you how many pages there are. Like it kind of gives this value of like, hey, look, there's so much. But that's the only box it ticks. It doesn't show what the resource actually looks like, what they're getting. And for most buyers, they can already see that there are 30 pages. It's mentioned in the description. They need to see what the resource looks like. That's what previews are for. It's like, I need a close-up look that I'm not getting with the thumbnails, or I'm not getting with the description because that's just words. I need to see like the example of the quality of your work. Like, what do these pages look like? What fonts do you use? Is this going to be good for my students? Is there room for the students to write? Like, this is all the questions that people have in their head. So if they're like, I can't see it, I can't see the resource, you've lost the buyer. And I agree with that. I really do. And then, so someone else that agreed, they were like, yep, no preview or the tiny pics. I can't tell exactly what I'm getting. And then someone said no preview or previews that are thumbnails. They said reviews that are thumbnails. I think they meant previews that are thumbnails. And someone else said, yes, the preview being exactly the same as the thumbnails, which I've seen. And that always blew my mind. So I was like, okay, I see you. I think you're being a little bit lazy. You've made your 3 thumbnails and then you just like upload that as a preview because it's like quicker. Like that's the only thing I can see why anyone would do that, is just like time saving. Because I try to always sympathize with why people do things. And like, I don't see how that could be an intentional like marketing strategy. I think it's just laziness. If you've ever done that, no shame, but I think that's what it is. Thumbnails and previews are 2 very, very different things. Thumbnails are like these 3 tiny little pictures to kind of entice people, but they're really quite small and not easy to see. A preview is your opportunity to have this like big blown up, like full page, to show people the quality of your work. Also, this amazing opportunity, which, has become a trend nowadays, which is so good, with all the persuasive copy and the reviews and this is how you can use it. This is why it's so amazing. Here are some photos and mock-ups and script. I mean, the previews nowadays are like top notch. I'm not going to lie, compared to what we used to do in like 2018. So yeah, if you've been, and I don't know, I've seen a few big sellers, or like I've seen a big seller. I think I've seen people do this, and I think other people have been like inspired to do it or told to do it. So I definitely have seen it, and no judgment if you've done it, but a little bit of judgment because it's not, I don't think it's the way to go. I think you want to, previews are so, so impactful. Remember that TPT has said was like 2/3 of buyers consider it like the most important thing that persuades them into purchasing. Like it's so important to your conversions. And I guess if you want to think about it this way, you've spent so many hours or days or weeks or whatever pouring your heart and soul into making this resource. And if you were to know, if someone to say to you, like a buyer to look you in the eye and actually say, look, you've put this time and energy into this resource and I don't care, I'm not going to buy it because I don't know for sure what it looks like. I mean, like, I don't know, like imagine you could actually talk to a real human and they like looked you in the face. They were like, you showed them the resource in person. They were like, yeah, this is so amazing. I never would have bought this from you on TPT based on your listing because I couldn't see that amazingness on, you didn't show me that on there. And like, you've lost that sale, like, because I think you've probably made an amazing resource. And I think teachers out there and buyers out there would love it. And it's sad to think that it's not being bought because you couldn't be bothered to make a preview or to make a good preview. And that's really sad. It's almost kind of like, and I love analogies, running a race. Like you prepare for it, you spend months training for it. Like you run this marathon and you run like 90% of the race, you're about to cross the finish line, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to sit down here and stop. I'm like, no, but you're so close. But you've made this great resource and you've done like 99% of the work to getting money from someone basically by creating this amazing thing. And you get right to the end, so close to making a sale. And then you're like, can't be bothered. Can't be bothered to make a preview. I can't be bothered to make a good preview. It's like, then you lose it right there. That's so sad when you think about it. So think about your listings a little bit like that, a big marathon that you've run and you've put all that time and energy into it. And it's like you're just throwing it away at the last minute. I don't know if that helps or not. I do kind of ramble on with my analogy sometimes, but I think sometimes it's nice to think about things that way. Okay, so that was all the stuff people talked about to do with listings. Like that was the main purpose of this episode, the main purpose of like what I intended the post to really be about. Like, hey, what really annoys you? Because I said literally what annoys you when you're looking at someone's listing. But people did actually decide to comment a bit about the actual product's content, like the content of resources. And I think this is helpful too. So I'm going to share all this stuff that they said. I think it's more about when you've bought it maybe, but also when you're looking to buy a resource, maybe they have great covers and thumbnails and previews and descriptions and their page numbers is all great, right? what else could put someone off? And it could actually be the product itself. Even if they haven't yet purchased it, they can see that something's not right. So that's like, yes, it's a little bit of what people find annoying after they purchase and once they actually look at the product, but also, what maybe puts them off at the listing stage based on the actual product. Anyway, no answer keys for math resources. That was a punch in the gut because I've been there. And again, this is like not a sinister thing. I remember as a newer seller, like, I just honestly think it didn't occur to me sometimes, which is ridiculous. I don't know. You just almost like forget. I don't know. And then I know there were other times it's like, ugh, I just can't be bothered. So that was pure laziness on my part. And I have rectified that a little bit, but I don't really do math stuff anymore anyway. But if you're not having answer keys, reining you in on this one. That's a pretty big one to fix. So in terms of what the resources actually look like, people said, thick, extravagant borders, like on the worksheets that take up too much space and waste ink. People also said things like, there's no place for the students to write their name, or there's not enough room for students to show their work. Like, I want to see that. If I can't see that in your listing, that there's enough room for the kids to actually write stuff. Fonts was brought up a few times. Some people said, like, I want normal, boring, easy to read fonts. I don't want fancy, curly, cursive fonts. So this was a high school teacher. She's like, I teach high school. I don't want all the juvenile clip art. I don't want all the swirly fonts. But someone else actually said, oh, if you use that, Calibri or whatever, like if you use those kind of fonts, I hate you because that's too generic. But then other people came back and were like, oh, wait, no, but that's really good for students to read. Someone else said, fonts with mixed capitals and lowercase. We try to get so hard for students to stop doing that. And then someone else said they actually get really annoyed if like the listing looks really great, like there's a really great copy in the description, but the actual resource is bad. So, I mean, for that one, the takeaway would be like, maybe don't put too much time in the listing and not enough time into the actual product. But yeah, the summary there is like, you actually want to make sure that the fonts are legible, I think is a really important one. Yeah, this one was like visual aspect. So, that the resource is half of the page and then the other half is like a waste of paper in terms of like color and printing. Like, I guess they want bang for their buck in terms of what's actually on the page, lots of content rich stuff. Someone else said, when I purchase a grammar product and it has grammar mistakes. So a lot of people laughed at that one. I mean, we all make mistakes. Okay, if you make a spelling error, that's fine. But I think it's kind of ironic, I suppose, if you have a grammar resource and you have a lot of grammar errors. So for that one, the tip obviously is like, proof your work or pay someone to proof your work or get your husband or daughter or sister or brother or friend or teacher or whatever, fellow colleague to proof your work, or come back later the next day with a fresh set of eyes and proof your work. Like, I guess that's a worthwhile step to take, even if it slows you down because you're excited to upload the resource. Like, pause for a second and proof, because there's nothing worse than when a buyer leaves you a 1-star review because you spelt something wrong. So, and that's always really annoying. And there's some buyers that leave nice reviews saying like, I just want to let you know, or a Q&A, but sometimes they do leave mean reviews. An Australian actually said they didn't like it when it's always just US only spellings, which is tricky because I do that. Even though I'm in Australia, I do only US spellings because it's all my buyers are US. So I don't know whether I feel like that one is something you have to do. I guess if you're like outside of the US doing international stuff and like an Australian teacher, and you can see that your buyers actually are Australian, like I guess but yeah, I don't know if I 100% agree with that one because a lot of the buyers on TPT are really from the US. It's a lot of effort to double everything and change the spelling, but it's something I will think about. I think that's a good one. This reminds me of answer keys. I think it's just a laziness thing. Like, if I took the time, I could totally do that. But anyway, color or grayscale copies only. So like maybe not having the option for both. Yeah, like they just offer something in color and you're like, but hey, I need the black and white version. I don't have access to color printing. That's a good one. And that could totally deter someone from buying because they're like, wait, what? There's no black and white version, or vice versa. Wait, I can't print these in color. Like, so yeah, I mean, offering both. Yeah, that's a good one. I could see why that would put people off buying. And then the last one was about the actual content. Someone said, creating a product and you obviously do not know the subject matter. So this person was like a Hebrew school teacher, and they were like, I had to email the teacher. There's so much wrong with it. They were using like Christmas candle clip art for the Shabbat candles. I'm like, oh my goodness. She admitted she wasn't Jewish and put the resource together based on what she knew, which was not much. And then someone replied and they were like, yeah, this really annoys me. It's not using your due diligence. Like, when creating resources, like, and then these people like don't actually want to pay someone, who knows better to do the labor of reviewing that resource. Like, it's like perpetuating harm, like mispresenting other people's cultures. Like, that is really dodgy. And yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's a bit iffy if you're like trying to make money on something you don't really understand. And that's like a whole thing that people have been really passionate about on TPT. I know that's come up in a lot of different various holiday themed things, if that's not something, Kwanzaa or something, I don't know, something that you really don't know anything about and you're just trying to make money off it. And it's like, yeah, so that cultural stuff's pretty dicey. And so, basically that was all the stuff. So thank you to all those people that commented in that thread, because obviously this is all their words of wisdom, but I do agree with literally all of it. And it's just nice to hear someone else say it. But my little summary takeaways, because that was a lot of information thrown at you. The biggest things, I think, honesty is the best policy, like always being really honest in how you, represent things, being as detailed as you can, about what's included and what they're getting, what things look like and who it's for. The more info, the better. Putting lots of info in your descriptions, being honest in your page numbers, having a freaking preview apparently is the thing that really annoys people the most. So you must have previews. If you don't have previews on your resources, like I consider that top priority. Maybe that's something you would put at the top of your to-do list. And having a really great preview. And of course, there's all those great product things as well. But the biggest takeaway, I think, would be, go right now, have a look at your store, go to your product statistics, and go to the preview views. Because if there's 0 preview views, that's usually a big indicator. Like I think you can organize slowest to highest. So maybe you can look and see, okay, I've got 30 resources with 0 preview views, and you can go and check them just to make sure it's not because it's new, like a new resource. And if it has no preview, especially bundle specific previews are a must, because people are paying more money. Like they even more than ever, they need to know what they're getting. If you have missing previews, put that to the top of your to-do list, because that's going to have a massive impact on your conversions and your sales. And apparently is a thing that really annoys people. So there you have it. The words of wisdom from other sellers who are also buyers. And again, this is not just my opinion or people's opinion as a seller. These are people who are actually teachers in the classroom. Yeah, they happen to be sellers, but they are buying stuff for their own students or, homeschool kids or whatever. And they're like, this makes me so mad. So I really, really hope this has helped. This episode got a little bit long. I am getting into a rambly phase. I haven't done episodes this long in a really long time. But I still hope it was helpful. I'll put a link in the show notes to my Facebook group, The Terrific Teacherpreneur, so you don't miss out on any other posts like this. And I hope that you have a terrific day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.